Somebody do that or did I? Wait a second here.
Test, test, test.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Virginia City Council Chambers. Those of you who are in the audience today and those who are listening at home, we have a full agenda this evening, so we'll try to get through it as quick as we can. And we promise that we'll try to get done by 7 o'clock so that the Virginia Rockridge Wolverines hockey game can be watched in its entirety by the public. So we'll try to do the best we can to get through it professionally. Today's date is Tuesday, January 10th, 2022, and the time is 5:30 p.m., and I officially call the City Council meeting to order. Pam, would you please take the roll call?
Motley. Friedlieb.
Present.
Paulson.
Present.
Beyondich.
Present.
Johnson.
Here.
Zelli is absent. Cuffey.
Here. Would everyone please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, thank you, everyone. We have a late agenda under item 3, an agenda item. As we all know, on Monday, next week on the 16th is a holiday honoring Reverend Martin Luther King. So I think it was appropriate for us to issue officially to the general public a proclamation recognizing Martin Luther King Day. So I'd like to read this proclamation on behalf of the citizens of the city and all the elected officials here today. Whereas the Reverend Martin Luther King Jr., who was born January 15, 1929, dedicated and sacrificed his life to promote a world of peace, equality, justice, and freedom for all. Whereas we are inspired by Dr. King as he lived his life preaching the words of peace, hope, and harmony. Dr. King once said, and I quote, "The hope of a secure and livable world lies with the disciplined nonconformists who are dedicated to justice, peace, and brotherhood," unquote. The survival of mankind rests on the shoulders of good. The adage, quote, "Evil wins when good does nothing," unquote, is a reminder of our responsibilities as human beings. Whereas the teachings of Dr. King must live on and in all of us. For mankind to survive, we must live by a higher calling, one that is designed to motivate and encourage good people to overcome all evil. Whereas our community stands together in a sport of love, kindness, peace, and truth, and where openness and communication is the key to a strong, healthy, and safe environment for all people. Whereas we declare our support and commitment to human rights through the world. Every person is protected by the Human Rights Act as advocated by Dr. King. Our community stands for freedom, for peace, and justice for all. Now therefore be it resolved by the Mayor Larry Cuffey Jr. with support of the Virginia City Council, the Human Rights Commission, all the citizens of the city of Virginia, Minnesota, that we proclaim Monday, January 16, 2023, a day of recognition, celebration, and honor of a humble man of peace, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., and recommit our efforts to live a life of peace and acceptance. We'll move to item 4 on the agenda, which is the public forum. This is an opportunity for anybody in the audience that'd like to come and speak before the council. Is there anyone that's in the audience today that'd like to address the council this evening? Seeing none, we'll move to item 5, which is the consent agenda. The following items will be enacted by one motion unless a councilor or a citizen of the city of Virginia requests that the item be considered separately. Item 5.1 is the approval correction of the minutes of the regular meeting held December 27th, 2022, and the reorganizational meeting that was held on January 3rd, 2023. 5.2 is the adoption of finance resolution number 23-001, the schedule of bills. And we will be pulling one item out of the schedule of bills, and that's Rachel Contracting in the amount of $35,968. Councilor Paulson has indicated that she needs to recuse herself as a result of this payment, but is able to vote on all our items on the finance resolution. Number 5.3 is the approval of the 223 massage license. 5.3A, Angela Drake, doing business as the Laurentian Divide Salon and Spa. Item 5.3B, Stephen Lapatka, doing business as Masabi Therapeutic Massage. And item 5.3, Tara Tricano, doing business as Blue A Salon and Spa. Item 5.4 is approve the following travel requests. Jen Mogensen and Jim Hunt from the Iron Trail Motors Event Center to attend the Duluth Wedding Show, January 13th and 14th, 2023 in Duluth at a cost of $216.82 and $358.61 respectively. Item 5.4B, Christina Nicola from our Planning, Permitting, and Code Department to attend the Annual Institute for Building Officials, January 22nd through the 27th, 2023 in Brooklyn Center at a cost of $1,818.49. Item 5.4C, Christina Nicola for our Code Enforcement, Permitting, and Processing Project, and Bill Cole to attend the 19th Annual ICC Upper Great Plains Region 3 Institute, February 12th through the 17th, 2023 in Brooklyn Park at a cost of $1,838.79 each. 5.4D, Officer Grivna from the Police Department to attend the Street Cop Everything K-9, January 30th, 2023 in Hibbing at a cost of $225. Item 5.4E, Zachary Yurzak from the Fire Department to attend the Firefighter Health Forum, January 20th through the 21st, 2023 in Onamia, Minnesota at a cost of $362.10. Item 5.5 is approve the 2023 on-sale wine and strong beer license for Laurentian Arts and Culture Alliance, doing business as the Lyric Center for the Arts. And finally, item 5.6, approve the on-sale Sunday liquor license for Polly's LLC, doing business as Polly G's. These are the consent agenda items on for consideration tonight. Looking for council action.
I'll move to approve the consent agenda as has been presented.
Councilor Freely moves to approve the consent agenda as presented. Is there support?
Support it.
Support by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. I would like to pull 5.2 for questions.
Okay. Councilor Beyondich requests to pull item 5.2, the adoption of the finance resolutions, and hold this vote in abeyance until this issue is resolved. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. I would like to, I did have some invoices printed for the screen graphics, advertising for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. And I know in the past we've talked about trying to keep our business local. This one is out of Superior, Wisconsin. I'm wondering if our local businesses have been offered this
Are those
to do the printing.
Are those the dasher boards?
No.
No. Britt, you have any information about that?
Yes. The answer is yes.
So who was contacted?
Barber Graphics.
And were they able to do this?
They were not available to do that in the time frame we needed.
Are these ordered in plenty of time so there is assurance of delivery on the product? Because I know we've stressed this before, that we really try to keep our business, city business, to local business.
We do all the time. We try to, I know more than anybody else really supports, especially the downtown Virginia area as well as the rest of the Virginia businesses. With a change in staff, there was a time crunch that we had to get some stuff done to be prepared for some upcoming events. So we had to move faster than we normally would have liked.
Have we ordered from them before?
We have.
Is there a time crunch with those as well?
There has been, and sometimes it's availability of information, of stuff we need that some vendors just don't have and some do. And so we shop around and try to find the best deal and use our vendors when we can.
Okay, and I know, and we've talked about this before also, that even if we have to pay a little bit more to keep it local,
Correct.
we need to try and keep our business that support our community, and especially this event center, to keep this business as local as we can.
Absolutely.
So in the upcoming, if we know of things that are coming up, I'm really going to stress that we need to keep things as local as we can for our businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, Britt. Thank you, Counselor Beyondich. So it has been moved and supported to adopt the finance resolution number 23-001 for the exception of Rachel Contracting of $35,968, which is a recusal by Counselor Paulson. We can vote on all the other items. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I do want to address what Councilor Beyondich just put forward. This morning, I did have a conversation with Brian Silver and Jim Hunt regarding those products, because I did have a question when I looked at the schedule of bills, what this company was. They're out of Superior. And the product, I think, part of the product is for the Duluth wedding show, but there were combination, I believe, of wine tumblers and things that we would be using to promote the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. And I did speak out this morning about my concern that these wine tumblers or anything that has the city's logo on it should be sourced locally. So I did have that conversation. I think that we do need to be mindful going forward. I don't know if we need to have specific, I think we already have, we've worked really hard to put parameters in place as a design team at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. So I don't know what we need to be mindful moving forward. And I don't know that those invoices were for uniforms. I think they were mainly for product that we would be using at the Duluth Wedding Expo. So I do have a concern about that, and I would like to keep it in the city limits of Virginia or our immediate area as we purchase product to be promoting our new event center. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Counselor Paulson. So any other items to be discussed on the finance resolution 23-001 or any other item that's on the consent agenda? Hearing and seeing none, so item 5.1 through 5.6, all those in favor to approve signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries, thank you. Item 6, appearances. This is an opportunity for someone to come before the council and speak if they like from the audience. I'm sorry, what was that?
Point of order.
I'm sorry, what was that, Britt?
I will move the Rachel contract independently of the rest of the consent agenda.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson. Counselor Johnson moves to approve the, on the bill run for Rachel contracting payment in the amount of $35,968. Is there support? Support by Counselor Freelieb. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, opposed?
Abstain.
Okay, thank you. With one abstention. Passes 5-1 with one abstention and one person absent. Okay. Now we'll go to appearances. Once again, no one is scheduled to appear before the council this evening. Does anyone in the audience like to address the council at this time? Seeing none, we'll move to item 7, unfinished business. Item 7.1 is the property at 410 5th Street South. And I did talk to our city attorney, Colleen, and she gave me a document here which outlines the Minnesota Judicial Branch, Minnesota Court Records, which is online to the general public. It lists out all the case evidence and all the information that we provided in this particular case involving the property and Mr. Tolman. The motion hearing is still scheduled for January 17th, 2023 at 8:30 a.m. The presiding judge in this case is going to be Judge Peterson. Attorneys for the City of Virginia, Michael Lindsay is the lead attorney, and the attorney on the defendant side for Todd Tolman is Carl Gregory Sundquist. And so that's the information we have. There's any other further information that we can disseminate from a legal perspective to the general public, to Mr. and Mrs. Kingsley, or to the city elected body?
No, Mayor, nothing. You've covered it completely, and we're just waiting for the hearing. It's a Zoom hearing, and we're hoping that it'll be productive, and we'll be able to report more once that hearing's over with.
Thank you, and I'd like to present this to Mr. and Mrs. Kingsley so they have this for their records. So I'll give it to you right now. And we'll have one sent to Pam for the record, city record. Thank you. Any other information on the property at 410 Fifth Street South? Mr. and Mrs. Kingsley, any questions or comments you might have in that regard?
It should, yes, those instructions should be there. And again, I think I sent to Britt the Zoom instructions, but we can relay those again to you if you need them. It is not an in-person hearing, it is only by Zoom. So, but that is all public information. You're able to click on, look at the documents, do whatever you like with respect to that. So.
Thank you. Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. Colleen, I don't know if maybe if you can refresh us, when the mayor was mentioning there was evidence that was presented, do we know what the evidence was, or do you have maybe an itemization that you could help us with?
I don't have the document in front of me, but basically the submissions included the inspection report, the written order from the council, the inspection report. It includes an application for an administrative search warrant and a motion. And the motion is to take down the building. And the court may proceed in a specific order. They may give the search warrant first and then conduct a later hearing on the underlying motion. It's to the discretion of the judge how they want to proceed. But all of the documents are available for viewing in on the website. If you pull in that case number, you'll be able to look at everything that Attorney Lindsay submitted. With that were all the other affidavits of service, the posting, all the other documentation he needed to submit to prove that they had gotten information that this is pending. And
So all of that has been submitted, so the judge will have
Absolutely,
all that
absolutely.
pertinent information.
Yes.
And then as far as because I know we took a multi-prong approach on this, so as
Yes.
far as the actual warrant to enter the premises, that's mainly just to conduct our inspection on what the requirement was to repair.
kind of like a final inspection to see
Final
what the
inspection.
status is with respect to
So
what the request
at a
was.
minimum, though, that the city should be granted at least that.
Again, I'm not a judge, and so I never say what the judges are going to do or not do, but that would be our expectation, that would be
Okay.
the first thing that would be granted, and then perhaps set it on for further proceedings with respect to the
Okay.
motion.
I
That's my
appreciate it.
understanding.
Thanks, Colleen. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilor Paulson. We'll have our city attorney forward a copy to Pam and have Pam distribute it to all the councils. Thank you. Anything else on this parcel of property? We'll move to item 7.2, which is the clinic lease. We're still in the process of making contact and having some kind of a formal meeting or discussions with Essentia, and that schedule will be forthcoming. Britt, you have any more on that?
I did speak, I emailed Sam Stone again yesterday. He did finally email me back today, and we email committed to have a phone call this week to discuss times and dates.
Okay, very good. We're getting ahead of this, so we have some time yet, quite a bit of time, but to resolve it as quickly as we can and have these meetings for all elected officials and city staff so the public has become aware. Item 7.3 is the rental code ordinance. And do we have any information from where we're at with the finalization of that, Britt?
Yes, it's on our agenda under the discussion.
Very good. Thank you. For the purpose of the general public, we do have it in our agenda packet. It is available for you for review. If you would like a copy, please give us a call at City Hall. Our city clerk, Pamela Bean, and we'll provide it to you in some data form or mail a copy to you. It is fair for us to discuss at this point in time. So anybody have any information? Britt, are you looking for any action on this tonight?
Not at this time. We're going to be setting a public hearing that we'll talk about under committee reports.
Okay, and we're going to have another hearing for the general public for a finalization before we make a motion to adopt. Okay, thank you. Anybody have any questions, comments about the rental code ordinance and the process moving forward? Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item 8, discussion items. Item 8.1 is the adoption of resolution designating the official city newspaper for 2023. Counselor Johnson.
I will move the resolution adopting the Mesabi Tribune as the official newspaper for 2023.
Okay, Counselor Johnson moves to approve the adoption as the Mesabi Tribune as the official city newspaper for 2023. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, motion carries. Item 8.2, adopt the resolution for the hiring of the sales marketing coordinator position, provided that this applicant meets all the standards required under the city guidelines.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Freely. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I have all the information in the packet. Unfortunately, I was not able to be at that meeting, but I was wondering if there was information on why there wasn't a second interview process for the entire council.
I think the committee met and under the hiring policy made that determination that they didn't think there was necessary to have a second interview with one or two other applicants for the position. So it was recommended at the committee meeting that this name be proffered forward to the city council for recommendation to approve. Thank you. So looking for a motion. We have a motion and support. Thank you, Old Timers Disease. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
Okay, roll call, please, Pam.
Beyondich,
No.
Johnson,
Yes.
absent. Coffee,
Yes.
Motley, Freely,
Yes.
Paulson,
Yes.
Motion passes. Thank you. Item 8.3 is adopt a resolution accepting a donation from Music in the Park.
Moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Freely. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
Brian, since you're here, there are still opportunities for people to sponsor Music in the Park as well, is there not? It's a great opportunity. A lot of people attend our Music in the Park, so it's a great opportunity to get your name out there.
Okay, thank you. Has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 8.4, approve the Regional Advisory Committee, the RAC Board appointment for 2023. This is a appointment that you do every year for communications on the advisory board for the regional radio operators for emergency services. Traditionally, Chief Nicole Matson and Assistant Chief Chad Nicola have been the primary and secondary representatives for the city on this board. So looking to approve those appointments for 2023.
Move to approve.
Moved approved by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
Support.
By Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. 8.5 is approve the Emergency Communications Board, the ECB appointments for 2023. And traditionally, we have had the chief of the fire department, which would be Scott Frederickson, and the assistant chief, Eric Jonason, as the alternate to be representatives for the city on the Emergency Communications Board, the ECB appointment for 2023. Move to approve by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support by Councilor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Item 8.6, adopt a resolution to hire a single-role EMT.
I'll move to approve.
Move to approve by Counselor Paulson. supported by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Move to item 9, committee reports. 9.1, the committee of the whole meeting that was held on January 3rd, 2023. We'll turn this portion of our city council meeting over to our city administrator, Britt C. Bennett. Britt?
Thank you. At our first meeting of the year on January 3rd, 2023, we had a discussion and a presentation from Mr. Aaron Johnson regarding his request to purchase an area of property in Midway known as RLS 21, which is Registered Land Survey number 21, which we refer to as the Mulliver property that the city had purchased a while ago. It was moved and supported to approve staff, to direct staff to review the proposal for the proposed project from Mr. Johnson for the purchase of the RLS 21 area and to review the previous proposals that we have received.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support? Is there support? Support by Counselor Paulson. Further discussion, Counselor Johnson.
We'll be scheduling a Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting towards the end of the month to go over this and several other things that we've talked about for a while.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Johnson.
Can I clarify?
Clarification, Counselor Freely.
That was not necessarily a move to accept the proposed project from Aaron Johnson. Okay, thank you.
Just to review it, so, thank you. So it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
We had a presentation by Mr. Lieutenant John Swenson, the Community Resource Officer, regarding the Shop with the Cop. The Shop with the Cop program in December before Christmas was in existence for 3 years and gets support from public sector as well as local unions and other donations. Christmas presents were given to 80 to 85 children this year. Thank you to everybody that donated to that. Mr. Brian Silver, Park and Recreation Director, was at the meeting to discuss the request to purchase the floor scrubber. It was moved and supported to direct staff to acquire additional information for the purchase of the floor scrubber, and Brian is here to talk about the information he has found.
Thank you, Britt. Our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber. Brian, thank you for coming this evening.
Thank you. We reached out to Delco to inquire about the floor scrubber that we approved back in May. They informed us that delivery of that floor scrubber will be this week. So we are not able to get out of purchasing or cancel that floor scrubber. And we were unable to get additional quotes for a second ride-on floor scrubber or another walk-behind floor scrubber, which in my opinion is moot at this point. Since last week, both of our old floor scrubbers have been returned to us from the shop. The stand-on blue one is functioning. So we have been able to start using that one in some of the hallways and everything. The maroon one, which is the newer of the two, which is the ride-on one, they said was fixed. We got on it and it lasted all of 7 minutes before it shut down again itself. So thankfully our mechanics at the shop have said that they will try and take a look at it, even though they don't specialize in floor scrubbers, just to see if they can't wave their magic wand over it and get it to resurrect a little bit more. But if we were to receive this walk-behind floor scrubber, which is the one that we test drove on the walking track that worked great, and we were to purchase the one that was presented to you last week, we would be sitting very pretty for floor scrubbers, and our staff would be able to maintain the building much more to the quality that we hope to.
And thank you, Brian. And your recommendation is?
Is to purchase the floor scrubber that was presented to you at Tuesday's Committee of the Whole.
Thank you. Counselor Paulson?
I would move that just with that was the Burco company, and it was the amount of 17,800 or 18,000?
18,250.
18,250. So I would move that forward. Thank you.
Counselor Paulson moves to approve the recommendation by our Park and Rec Director to purchase that scrubber at that particular price. Is there support?
Support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Freely for discussion, further discussion. Counselor Freely.
Just a quick question, Brian. So the one that we are going to be getting this week that we've been waiting a long time for, is that a circular scrubber or is that the rotational scrubber?
That is a circular scrubber. The one that we proposed purchasing today, that is a rotational one.
So currently then, what are we using to keep the maintenance of the upstairs running track or walking track? Is it by hand?
We have a vacuum cleaner and we spot clean, sometimes with a mop and bucket and on your hands and knees scrubbing it. So it is, we need something.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Counselor Freely. But it has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Counselor Johnson.
I don't believe that it's going to show up this week. You've been told that several times. If it doesn't show up by Friday of this week, should we just authorize you to cancel it and move forward? I want to make sure, it's been May. We're in a different year now. So I'm just wondering what the right step is to authorize. Otherwise, it's going to be another 2 weeks, and what if it's not here in 2 weeks? I'm just concerned.
I think maybe what we do is give a timeline. If it doesn't come by the end of the week, we'll give Brian the authority to cancel.
We'll make that motion after this vote.
Very good. So it was moved and supported for the purchase of the scrubber as presented for the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Counselor Johnson.
I would make a motion to authorize Brian to cancel the order if he feels fit on Friday at 4 PM. Give him a day on Friday. It's just frustrating because we've been waiting, so I'm more than patient. Thank you.
Okay, a motion by Counselor Johnson to authorize our Park and Rec Director, Brian Silber, to cancel the order, the first one, if it's not received by Friday, or if he deems an extension is necessary. Would that be helpful? Is there support?
I'll happily support that.
Supported by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Brian.
It was moved and supported to approve the temporary use license agreement with Rockstep Virginia LLC, and this is for the Community Resource Officer Office at the Thunderbird Mall, Uptown, Virginia, no.
So moved.
Move to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Counselor Beyondich. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
We had discussion regarding City Ordinance, Chapter 13, regulating tree shrub planting and maintenance. After discussion, it was moved and supported to set a special meeting at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center for public input on the tree removal process within the city of Virginia, and to hold that meeting in the evening.
Thank you. Looking for a motion?
I'll move.
Move to approve by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
I'll support for discussion.
Support by Counselor Freely for discussion. Further discussion, Counselor Freely.
I do know that there are community members that are interested in attending that meeting, but not just receiving information as to what that particular process is, but then what the plan will be put in place on top of that to replant and beautify the city in some fashion, and how they may in fact be availed to assist in that capacity. So just kind of an FYI, if there's some extension to what kind of information we can provide and welcome the public to be involved, that would be very helpful to that meeting.
Thank you, Counselor Freely. But I think the goal, the objective, and the purpose and intent of this meeting is to allow that very thing. Counselor Paulson.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to ask, was there a reason we wanted to host it at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center? Was it technology reason, or was it just more room reason? I can't remember why we wanted to have that meeting set there.
Well, I think it was just a suggestion on my part to hold it there. If we could have it in one of the ballrooms, just in case we get a lot of people show up, or we'll have it in a professional environment where, people will have the opportunity to.
Perfect. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you very much, Councilor Paulson. So I guess apparently there's no specific reason that we asked that. So it has been moved and supported. Further discussion, Councilor Beyondich?
you. And I would also like to make sure that the Public Utilities and our Public Works Department, somebody that represents them or has the information, so when people come forward with their concerns about the tree removal, that we can have somebody from those departments inform them as to some of the complex issues also with the trees. And will this meeting be able to be live streamed so people can watch it at home? If it's at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center?
Record it for sure, but I don't know that we can live stream it. We'll try to figure that out too.
Okay, just so the public would have, be available to it. Thank you.
So I guess I'd like to offer a friendly amendment then that in the event that we can't live stream it at the Ontario Motors Event Center, we move that meeting here, so we can do that. That make sense? Can we add that with the motion in the second?
I'll amend.
Very good, thank you. Moved and supported. Further discussion? Hearing and seeing none. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
The City Council at that meeting reviewed the proposed rental code and fee schedule. The crime-free housing portion of that rental code was omitted at this time. We discussed the designated building official would be in charge of overseeing the proposed ordinance along with the fire department and the fire marshal. It was further discussion was continued on the implementation of the rental code, and it was suggested to have another additional public meeting. It was moved and supported to direct staff to set a meeting for public input on the final draft of the city code ordinance and fee schedule, and to allow for a 30-day waiting period from the initial meeting for adoption. Time for public comment.
Thank you. Move to approve by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Johnson. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries.
The council reviewed the Iron Trail Motors Event Center naming rights agreement with Iron Trail Motors. It was moved and supported to direct the city attorney to determine the next steps in the process for discussion on the Iron Trail Motors Event Center naming rights agreement.
Thank you.
So moved.
Move to approve by Councilor Freely. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Councilor Johnson. Further discussion? Did anybody have anything they'd like to add at this point in time? First, Councilor Freely, and then Councilor Paulson, and then Councilor Motley. Councilor Freely.
In the For What It's Worth department, I have had the opportunity to have some informal conversation with administration from Iron Trail as a private citizen, and have expressed to them my buyer's remorse with regard to entering into this contract with them. More so in the fact that, I mean, I am very appreciative of the fact that they came forward to provide the city with $1.1 million to be invested into the city over the course of 20 years. But there are components of that contract that would allow them to provide waivers for other businesses throughout the city who come forward wishing to provide sponsorships or to have advertisements displayed in there. And to this point in time, and well within their reason and ability by contract, they've denied those waivers. But that is creating some concerns within the community in terms of like who and how and when and why they can not or can be allowed to sponsor and or advertise in that building. And it's kind of handcuffed us as a municipality. And in a sense, we've lost the municipality's autonomy over doing business in that building. And that's very frustrating to me, and I'm sure it is to the administration of the building for that matter. And so I think there needs to be some further discussion, and I think we need our attorney to be involved in that to discuss what kinds of options are available for them to consider that, what the city's dealing with at this point, and what kind of efforts they can make to assist us in doing business in a more reputable fashion. Because I'll be honest with you, I really think that the city's reputation is beginning to be harmed by us not being able to do accommodating business with businesses in town and in the surrounding area. So I hate to say that, but that's just the reality at this point in time. But I do think that it can be fixed through conversation and further negotiations with the Iron Trail Motors entity. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we move to Counselor Motley, and then we'll go to Counselor Paulson. Counselor Motley?
I typed something up, so bear with me. With respect to the naming rights contract with Iron Trail Motors, in my opinion, I think this contract has been no good for the city of Virginia. This contract, in my opinion, does not have the city of Virginia's best interest in mind. This agreement for naming rights gave away too much to Iron Trail Motors. We lost the ability to allow many countless businesses to advertise in our community venue. We are currently in a breach of contract as we cannot guarantee all Rock Ridge hockey games at home. That is the Rock Ridge School Board who determines that. Currently, as of Friday, in the Toyota Arena, 27 dashboard spots are still available for advertising. In the Chevrolet Arena, there is 29 dashboard spots available for advertising. The cost for a dashboard is $1,200 for 12 months in the Toyota Arena and $1,000 a month for 12 months in the Chevrolet Arena. Is that right? Okay. This is a total of 56 dashboards unfulfilled. The total lost potential revenue is $61,400. That's for 1 year. I feel that the city of Virginia should have total power over what comes into the arena and should allow businesses the opportunity to advertise at the city's discretion, not Iron Trail Motors. My opinion is to void the contract immediately. If Iron Trail wants to continue having naming rights, let's renegotiate a simple new contract, but the city controls everything and no more asking permission. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor Motley. Counselor Paulson?
I really would agree with what Counselor Motley just read. I actually wholeheartedly agree with that, but I also wanted to address, I thought we were going to have information coming back from the attorney today telling us one way or the other, what we can talk about, what we can't. So now we're kicking the can again down the road to the committee of the whole meeting. I thought tonight we were supposed to get information of what, can we go into closed session, can we not, what can we talk about? That's what I thought the motion was when Counselor Johnson made the motion. Maybe I'm incorrect, so I was coming to this meeting tonight either A, prepared to discuss further, or B, getting the attorney's advice if we need to go into closed session to negotiate a contract.
Well, I think the goal and the objective here is to discuss it openly like we do. And I think the intent was to potentially set a date, once we establish our strategy, set a date to meet with Iron Trail Motors to do the very thing we want to do, is to renegotiate the contract and look at what options we have. And so we want to know what those options are before we have that meeting. And so we should get that information from our attorney moving forward, what their next step were. As far as negotiating a contract, the negotiation piece comes in a closed session environment.
Okay, so I guess what do we need to, it says, to direct the city attorney to determine the next steps in the process for discussion on the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. Now, why are we having to move that forward again? I don't understand. I thought we moved it forward and then we were going to get that information this evening.
Yeah, Brian's not here, so I don't know if he has some information for us. Did he provide you any guidance in that regard, Colleen?
We did speak just generally about the situation, and I think his understanding was that he would prepare something and provide that to the council at the next committee of the whole. So if that was a misunderstanding, I apologize on his behalf.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's okay, but we also have a very large venue, the Home Sport Travel Show, that is looking for some kind of a response from the city of Virginia regarding this. And part of that response that the city can or cannot give is, can one of its competitors be involved? And I thought we were going to learn about this sooner than later. And now, again, we all know the problems. And now we're going to make an entire group, I wouldn't say group, I would say a venue, very unhappy if we're kicking this can down the road to have another discussion. it just doesn't make sense to me how we're doing this process. I thought our process was the city attorney, we asked our questions, we kind of directed what we thought, and that we would get some response back this evening so we can determine our next steps for moving forward with some of these crucial events. So nothing against our city attorney, but maybe I misunderstood that. But we really need some clarification on this moving forward if we are being prohibited and the city's hands are tied with sponsorships or venues or events. And that, to me, is not only time sensitive, it's revenue sensitive. So I would like to have that conversation yesterday. Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you, Counselor Paulson. You hold those in abeyance for a moment. We'll go to Counselor Johnson.
I guess I wasn't specific about having the information available tonight. Maybe that's part of the problem. I went back to look at what Brian, the motion for Brian, and it wasn't specific about tonight, but it came back tonight when it came about the floor scrubbers. And Mayor, with all due respect, my motion had nothing to do with scheduling a meeting with Iron Trail Motors at all.
No,
I think excuse me. I think what's going on here is we are not getting on the same page, and we need to know from our attorney and what we want to do to schedule an appointment with their attorney. Because their attorney is their legal representation. That's who we're supposed to be talking to. That's what the contract says, that their attorney can either talk to our attorney or to Britt, and that's it. And so that's where I'm at, and that's where I've been at this whole time, is how do we have that discussion? I don't believe there's a negotiation that needs to go on here. My opinion is we need to say, this is what we want, this is what our citizens are talking about, this is what we're going to do. And then we need to figure it out from there. I don't know that, to me, a negotiation means they give a little and we give a little, and we've given a whole lot over the last year. I believe that we have lost events because of how much we have given. And so that's how my intention is to move forward. I guess tonight we're making the official requests. In theory, what happens is at the Committee of the Whole, we ask for stuff and we move it forward here for final decisions, and then the directives come from this meeting for the next meeting. Excuse me, so, and sometimes it goes that way and sometimes it doesn't. And I think that's just the nature of the beast of city government, that sometimes things are able to happen within a week. You know, Brian Parks and Rec was able to do his digging and get that for us right away. And this just is a little bit more. So as we move forward, I guess I'll just make sure that if I feel it's time sensitive when I make a motion, I'll make sure that I'm making the motion specifically about time. But for me, it's about what do we want to do first, and then we take the steps from there after we hear from the attorney. Thank you.
No, thank you, Counselor Johnson. It wasn't my implication that was part of your motion. I'm just indicating that you had a motion on the floor. We're discussing this motion, and my intent is to make sure that we have some kind of a meeting with Iron Trail Motors. It doesn't necessarily mean it's a council to meet. It's our city attorney, their attorney. That's what the contract says, but we have to get off center here. And so that's the goal and objective, hopefully, is to prepare that information that our city attorney is going to meet, give us that information. I think that was what your motion, you wanted that information coming forward, so we hope to get that from our city attorney, what our next steps moving forward at the next committee of the whole meeting. And then we could, whatever decision we make, but it's my perspective that we direct our city attorney to negotiate based upon what we tell them what we wanted negotiated. So I think that comes as we discuss that at the next committee of the whole meeting. So I hope that clarifies. Councillor Paulson.
This is why I didn't want to support, thank you, Mayor. This is why I didn't want to support Councillor Johnson's motion to begin with, because it wasn't, to be honest with you, we had the discussion. So from my perspective, this isn't about the attorneys from Iron Trail and the attorney from the city of Virginia getting together and negotiating. This is, from my perspective, the council of Virginia, city council, telling our city attorney
Right.
what we want. And that's what I thought, the question in my mind with this motion was, do we have to do that in close? We said we couldn't maybe do it in close. Brian was gonna check on that. But I think we need to move on this. I don't wanna go back to Iron Trail Motors attorneys. That's, their attorneys are looking out for Iron Trail Motors. Our attorney is supposed to be looking out, and does look out for the city of Virginia. We have made it, and that's why I went through, like, what are our objections on this contract? And that's why when I asked you, Mayor, like, at the committee of the whole meeting, what else, and you said, okay, well, there are other issues, and I would agree with that. But when are we gonna get the opportunity to say, here's the issues, and Mr. Lindsay, this is what we want the contract to state? Because at this point, I will be very honest with you, according to all the feedback that I have received from the citizens in Virginia, in this community, I am ready to 100% pull back that contract tonight. That's how upset I am with all of the things that have transpired from Iron Trail Motors on their end in turning down. Councilor Motley just reviewed the dasher boards. Think about how many of those people that are on those dasher boards, whether it's a J&M Auto or a Lundgren Motor or a Waschke or a Champion Auto or Aero Glass or what have you, that services automotive vehicles. Now let's think about how many families that they have. And of those employees and their families, how many of those families are going to come back and book a room at the or book a ballroom, a wedding, of whatever, at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center because of this restrictive language that the city unfortunately got itself into this type of a restrictive contract. So at this point, I am seeing way more harm, not only reputational harm, but also financial harm happening. And if we don't do something right away, if we don't make a decision right away as a council, and I don't want, to me, this isn't about two attorneys negotiating. We need to stand up for the citizens of Virginia who are paying for this building, and we're already not only losing revenue, we're losing our reputation. So in my opinion, I would never vote to direct our attorney to go talk to Iron Trail Motors' attorney. I want to sit down and tell our attorney what things, if we want to maybe try to work through a contract, what things we want in the contract. But at this point in the game, I am ready to sever the contract 100%. So I came tonight with the expectation that we were going to have a direction from our city attorney. But in no way would I have voted on that if I thought it was to have the two attorneys negotiate. That's not where I'm coming from. Thank you, Mayor.
No, and I don't think that was the motion that Councilor Johnson made either. I think, I brought up the fact that we need to get the information from the attorneys. That was the purpose, to get information from the attorney. That's what the motion says, to determine what our next steps were. And that's the purpose, to get that information, what we need from our attorneys in order to meet with them and tell our attorneys, what are our next steps? How do we go about that? What can we do? Here's what we want to do, and then move forward from there. And so, Councilor Johnson, if with due respect, let's go to Councilor Beyondich first, and then let's read back the motion. Councilor Beyondich.
Thank you. And I will reiterate also, I have received phone calls. My latest one was from a business that was turned down from having a spot on a dasher board. So we are losing revenue on those dasher boards because we have no control over that. So I'm in full agreement with Councilor Paulson and Councilor Motley. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Would you please read back the motion that we had from the last committee of the whole meeting, please, Pam?
Moved by Councilor Friedlieb, supported by Councilor Johnson, to direct the city attorney to determine the next step in the process for discussion on the Iron Trail Motors Event Center naming rights agreement.
Okay, that was the motion. Is that correct? Thank you. So that's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion in that regard? Councilor Friedlieb.
Well, in the contract, and the only place in the contract that I see us having any legitimate reason to move forward with that further discussion is Section 9 under termination and suspension, subdivision E, harmful behavior. And what we would be contending is that Iron Trail's unwillingness to provide waivers is becoming harmful to us in terms of being able to acquire additional revenue from even the sales of boards around the arena. And if the math is correct from Counselor Motley, if we're losing potentially $62,000 per year and you multiply that by 20, that would be $1.2 million in lost revenue. So that's more than what we've been granted in the naming rights from Iron Trail. So I mean, you know, that might be a nuclear option, so to speak. And I don't know that I necessarily want to go there because I don't know that we necessarily want to rebrand the building and rebrand everything that we have at that building. I think there's room for negotiations to let them know how imperative and important it is to the city of Virginia for them to provide waivers for businesses throughout the city to be able to have advertising space in that building and allow us as a city to have the autonomy to determine who and where those advertisements can be placed. That's a negotiations that could occur. And we could say, and if that's not the case and you'd opt not to do that, then it's becoming harmful enough to us as a city that we'd immediately choose to terminate that contract. I mean, that's an option. I don't know that you want to, put that in play at this point in time, but that has to be suggested. Like, there's become a significant imbalance right now in this contract. And it's becoming harmful to the city's ability to do business in that building on behalf of all the local businesses that might be in some semblance of competition with Iron Trail Motors in some capacity. And it's gotten imbalanced to the point where it's affecting us negatively and harmfully, in my opinion. And I've expressed that to the administration of Iron Trail. But I think it needs to go to a formalized conversation between attorneys. So it's in a more legal, formal fashion so that we can work out what needs to be done. That's where I stand. I just think pulling the rug out from the naming rights contract in its entirety would be somewhat unfair to Iron Trail and others involved, and maybe even the city, because we acquiesced to this. We really did. And we're deeper in it than maybe we wanted to be, but there are ways to negotiate with that so that we can make it work for us and for them as well. I don't think they realize that, or in my opinion, I don't know how competitive businesses are, but obviously significantly competitive. I just don't see how peripheral businesses, and not to name any in particular, but peripheral businesses that might be in competition with changing tires or doing brakes or whatever is going to have any significant harm to Iron Trail's business that they do within the city by having them have competitors advertise in that building. I mean, the name is in the middle of the ice, the name is on the building, it's on every advertisement that you hear on radio, television, or otherwise. They have significant advertising occurring just by the mere fact that they have the name of that facility named after them. So I just think that the competition that they're facing is not something that's going to be reducing their potential revenue. But that's from my own standpoint as a neutral observer who has no real knowledge in the competition of business locally. So in any event, I think we definitely have to have a discussion, and maybe it needs to go to a more formalized conversation between the two attorneys, because that's what's designated in the contract, who needs to talk about that. And hopefully Brian can get them to realize that they need to help us as a community and a municipality to make some changes to that contract that'll benefit us and create more of a balance in that contract than the imbalance that we're currently feeling. So, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Freedy. Councilor Motley?
Okay, so just to be clear, we fill the remaining dashboards 1 year, $61,400. Iron Trail Motors gives us a little over $4,000 a month. Times 12 months, we'll say $50,000. In the event that this contract were to be severed, we fill those dashboards, we're still going to come out ahead $11,000 in 1 year. So if this were to be voided, we can find a way to make up for potential losses. So I'm just throwing that out there.
Thank you, Counselor Motley. Counselor Paulson?
Well, this is a jam-packed night. I also wanted to say, there is some, I mean, the city did decide to take this naming rights on. I understand that. I think it was a very bad decision that we made as a city council. Going forward, when I'm looking at and having conversations with potential people that are going to be using the facility, and they have, so I'm going to take again the home sport and travel show. Lundgren Motors for the past, I don't know, 40 plus years has been a sponsor. They went through the proper channels, the Home Boat and Travel, and they, in writing, requested that Iron Trail waive, and Iron Trail declined. I don't know exactly how many turndowns, but when I went in to meet with Brian and Jim this morning, there's been at least 4 turndowns for either events or dasher boards. It sounds like it's probably more. Excuse me. So then you add up what Councilor Motley just discussed. Now, let's take the Home Sport and Travel Show, and let's say there's 40 vendors that actually participate. They pay the fee, they participate in being a vendor at the Home Sport and Travel Show? Now, all of those vendors, so I just took, for instance, the people that couldn't advertise on the dasher boards. Now you have 40 vendors that are in there with 40 different family connections, employee connections, or whatever. Now, let that ripple effect happen and see the negativity that goes forward if the Home Sport and Travel Show doesn't book here in our brand-new $40 million facility because they're handcuffed, or the city is handcuffed, and cannot bypass that language in the contract. It makes absolutely no sense to me to send an attorney to go negotiate. I think we need to say, this is what we're going to do, and if we're in breach and it gets severed, it gets severed. It is, in my opinion, does any one of us want this to be on our shoulders when this building, if you looked at the budget revenue for the ballroom for this year, the ballroom is supposed to generate $500,000 in bookings. Now, how is that going to happen when our hands are tied with competing businesses if they get sponsorships? This is impacting and impeding this building. Now, I don't know how many of you want that on your shoulders saying, hey, because we couldn't stand strong or do it for the right reasons, that now 10 years down the line, nobody's going to use our building because of the bad reputation, the distrust, and look at how many people that impacts. Why, if I was a vendor down there and I was being told and treated, this is, Iron Trail isn't going to let this happen or whatever, and now we can't have the show because Lundgren's can't be a sponsor, okay. I'm a mom of 5 kids. Do you think I'm going to book my wedding at that venue when they've treated me or a potential place for me to make money at being a vendor at the Home Sport and Travel Show? I think we are completely missing the boat, that this is not, Iron Trail should not have ever been put in the strong or strength position. That contract should have always looked out for the city of Virginia's best interest and for the best interest of that building. And I don't know what that looks like, but I don't even know what I'm supporting in this motion, because the motion doesn't make sense to me what we're asking to be done. I don't understand, what are we asking to be done? For the city attorney to determine next steps. Well, how can he determine next steps if we haven't said this is what we want you to do?
I think that's what we have to do, determine what the next steps are. Tell the attorney what our next steps are. We have to tell them what that is.
But that's what I thought we were doing at the committee of the whole.
Well,
That's why we had the discussion.
right, but that's not what the motion come forward, so we need to move on
That's
the
why I
motion
didn't want to
first.
support the motion.
Well,
This is really frustrating if you can understand that. And now the Home Sport and Travel Show, they have a deadline. They want us to make a decision by the 15th. Are we going to sit and continue to do this and pop it down the road so we can, I don't know. I just think we need to be hard-lined and What we're losing here in potential revenue and potential reputation far outweighs the cost of any logo change, website change, what have you. It far outweighs that. And I, as a business owner, that is my perspective. This is harming the city very deeply. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilor Paulson, and I think that is correct. We are being harmed as a result of that. But I think we have to, if whatever decision we make, we have to do it in a legal way. And in order to do it legally, we have an attorney determine what the legal ways in which to do that. We just have to direct our city attorney to do what we want done, whatever that may be. So, Councilor Johnson.
Question for you, Counselor Freely. What was the section with the economic hardship? Could you repeat that, please?
9E.
9E?
9E.
So I will call for the question on the current motion just to be able to move forward.
All right, we'll call for the question on the motion. Please read it one more time, and we can always act on another motion after that. But please read the motion back, Pam, and we'll act on that motion, which is currently on the floor.
Moved by Counselor Freely, supported by Counselor Johnson, to direct the city attorney to determine the next step in the process for discussion on the Iron Trail Motors Event Center naming rights agreement.
Okay, thank you. Moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
No.
No? Okay. Everyone's a no. So the motion fails. Okay? Is there another motion on the floor? Counselor Johnson?
I will move to direct staff to accept all the sponsors that want to be at the Homeboat and Travel Show moving forward.
Okay, there's a motion on the floor by Counselor Johnson to allow staff to, what was it? What was the motion? I'm making sure I have it correct.
To authorize staff to accept sponsors and vendors for the Homeboat and Travel Show per the last 40 years.
I will support that motion.
Okay, moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Paulson. Is there any further discussion? I have some discussion too. I'm not sure if we can legally do that. We would be in breach of our contract, which opens over to a lawsuit. I don't know that, but I'm going to ask for the city attorney for an opinion on that. But before we do, Counselor Freely.
Yeah, I'm concerned about us just blatantly, violating the contract in that fashion. I think the other option would be for our attorney to call their attorney to say that we're invoking Section 9E and seeking to immediately terminate this contract in order to allow for Homeboat and Travel Show and to sell the boards and to do the things that we need to do as a municipality. And then that should then spark further discussion for negotiating that contract where they would say, then we're going to provide waivers for that. I mean, I don't know that you need to pull the rug out completely from the naming rights. They have the name on the building, the name on the ice, the name on every uniform in there. I mean, and we do have to appreciate the fact that they came forward when we put out an RFP to provide somebody to provide that input of revenue. But I'm not comfortable just blatantly violating the contract and saying, to heck with the contract, we're going to do whatever we want. I still think there's room for negotiation for them to recognize the fact that part of the reason that was put in there where they had the opportunity to waive these would be on our behalf as a city to allow us to have some autonomy there. I mean, certainly they don't have to, and they aren't, and that's causing a harmful effect to us. So the only really course of action I see is to invoke the 9E and say that if they're going to hold firm to just disallowing everything and going by the hard and fast rule of the contract, then we wish to invoke 9E, and we'd like to terminate it immediately and move forward from there. I don't know what else you can do. I don't think it's in our best interest to potentially get in a lawsuit with our naming rights representative. We have a clause in the contract that gives an opportunity to say, we're finding this contract to be harmful to us as a city, both our reputation and our ability to do business in that facility, and thereby we would seek to immediately terminate it unless you're willing to make concessions that would be beneficial to the city, because right now, they're not, and they need to. So that's where I'm at. I don't know that I can support blatantly violating the contract at this point in time.
No, and before we go back to Councilor Johnson, I agree that, I think, from my perspective, that's a framing of that, a motion for our intent to invoke item 9E in that regard, and then, and that opens it up, notify Iron Trail Motors, and that opens it up for potential response from that. It's the ball's in their court. Does that make sense, Colleen?
And one other suggestion I have is I could see a two-pronged approach where there's time-sensitive events occurring, like the sport and travel show, that we demand the waiver. And should the waiver not be granted by X date, then we would have no choice but to invoke 9E. Now, granted, if we invoke it, they can challenge that and say, you don't have the stuff to prove that. Well, then there could be litigation. Always, there's that potential, right? Just so the council's aware of that. But I hear what the council's saying, and I feel appreciative that you've briefed me, since I wasn't at the committee of the whole, to kind of make a contention. And looking at this contract too, I mean, I guess I do have a question about what real damages they would incur if it was breached. I don't see much in here. I mean, they ceased paying the fee. I don't know that there would be, I guess maybe they could make some kind of argument that their reputation has been harmed. That's always possible. But what that would look like and how they would prove those damages, beyond being speculative, I'm not convinced. But I think I would, as the counsel for the city, if the council wants to give direction to Brian tomorrow, contact their attorney, send a letter saying, look, this particular event needs to be waived by X date. Give a little bit of history of what's been going on and the revenue being lost and the reputation being lost, and saying, we want to invoke, if you're not going to do that and you're not going to confirm that, and have a discussion about how we can move forward on these waivers being more freely granted under the existing contract or making some changes, then, 90 is the next option and maybe not, so not saying we're going to invoke 90 immediately, but have the letter go out, see what their response is, and then from there, the council could make a decision. The council could tonight empower us to take both approaches as well. So that's my thought.
Yeah, thank you. And I know I think we all want the same thing. And so the motion by Councilor Johnson, the support, is, to do that very same thing. But if it's the motion on the floor and the second, would that motion that's on the floor now, would that open us up to litigation if we were to just say?
Yes, I would say,
Okay.
it always, anything can open up litigation, honestly. But if you're taking a stand where you're revoking the contract, they can come back and say, look, you haven't been, you've engaged in illegal conduct. And then they could say also that we haven't done anything that has hurt the city's reputation or goodwill. They can challenge that. They obviously can. They'll look for the facts that support that. And so then, again, we'd be in breach, and at that point, there could be litigation, and then the question would be, if you're in litigation, what are their damages? I mean, I think that's the next question I would have, and what can they prove?
Okay, thank you. I think we're getting closer to a strategy moving forward. Councilor Johnson.
Thank you. So the purpose of my motion is to allow Brian and the organization to move forward starting today. Because and I was ready to make a second motion to send a letter notifying of the 9C and our economic hardship. But my concern is by not allowing Brian, Parks and Rec, and the organization to move forward in a manner where we're backing them and we're having this event, they're not going to be able to do anything in the time once we get through all this court stuff. So that's the intent of my motion, is to authorize our staff give our blessing to start moving forward with the Homeboat and Travel Show and their organization so they can plan and they can do what they need to do to hold an event in March. The second motion then would be to send a letter to, have the attorney send a letter to Iron Trail Motors wanting to discuss the 2E section and reopen it because of the economic hardships that have been stated by all of us. Two-pronged approach. My concern is if we do this letter, it takes a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, however long the contract says, and now we're into the end of this January and there's not enough time to plan the event, or there's not enough time to seek alternatives. It'll be much easier in the future if we have to say, nope, sorry, Lundgren's really can't come, even if they're planned, than it is to say in a week and a half, 3 weeks, or 4 weeks, oh yeah, by the way, they can come now. So that's my logic here is we allow the staff to do what they need to do to plan the event. And then the second motion being we send them the letter with the 9E and list what's been listed here with the revenue and other things, you know. It really comes down to, it's not just Lundgren's, as brought up on that side. It's anybody who works on a vehicle at all. I mean, there has not been any give. We've had the series of emails asking, please, we would like to do this. And it's just no. There's no, well, we'd be willing to, you know, do it for that week or whatever. So I'm going to stand by my motion and because I would like to get this moving forward. And then I would make or be willing to support a motion directing the staff later to invoke the 9E hardship clause. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hold that thought, Councilor Friedman, which you did that. I think I would be looking for a motion and probably a support for moving forward. But right now, there's a motion on the floor and support. Please read back specifically what the motion is.
Moved by Counselor Johnson, supported by Counselor Paulson, to direct staff to accept all the sponsors and vendors that would like to attend the Home Sport and Travel Show as they have for the last 40 years, moving forward to conduct the event in March.
Okay, thank you. It's been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion? Councilor Paulson?
Thank you, Mayor. So I'm hearing what our city attorney is now saying. So I would like to, what you're saying is this motion could get us into a litigation situation. So if we change the language to demand the waiver, immediately demand the waiver, and then move forward, will that keep us out of a potential?
It reduces the likelihood,
It reduces
I would say,
the
because we're
likelihood.
trying to cooperate within the terms of the existing agreement. We're not going to immediate breach.
So I would ask if you would be all right with amending, or I guess I would rescind my support for allowing all of them. I would rather go through the legal channel of demanding the waiver, and then if they don't, then we go ahead and they go forward. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think my understanding was we would quickly demand the waiver, put a short timeline on it, whatever you determine is appropriate for this specific event. If there's any other events, you need to let us know. And then engage in a discussion about how this is getting applied, whether we need to make modifications for the future. And then third option would be is if there's no response or no feedback that allows us to cooperate, then we look at the 9E provision. So it's kind of actually three thoughts I have. 1 and 2 kind of go together because one leads into the other. The first is the example of what the immediate need is for this particular event. The second one is this is a continuing ongoing problem and we need to address it by revisiting the contract and having a discussion and some changes to it or some agreement as to how it's going to be applied going forward. And then the third option is, again, if there's you aren't able to receive that concession from Iron Trail Motors and their attorney, they don't want to budge on it, then your last option is 9E, I believe.
Okay, so I don't know, Counselor Johnson, would you be all right amending or?
Councilor Johnson?
Thank you, Mayor. Is this just for a waiver for Lundgren's or is it a blanket waiver for the event?
I would say blanket.
So explain to me a little bit so I understand, so I can convey it to Brian.
Would be anyone that would be considered a competitor of our naming rights contract agreement. And that's determined by them.
Okay.
We have no, I mean, if they sell a snowplow, it's a competitor. If they sell tires, it's a competitor. If they change oil, it's a competitor.
I mean, are we talking about, again, in my framework, there's one, the home travel show, two, there's a general application going forward, and three is 9E. So are we,
People can be at the home travel show that are direct competitors there.
right, okay. So are we limiting to that event, the first urgent issue, or are we going broad on everything going forward?
I think
guess
that's the
my
first
direct-
urgent issue so that our staff can do their jobs. But I think I would invoke 9E immediately because of the lost revenue and the potential negative, harmful to our reputation.
My recommendation, again, was more toward, there's this immediate show going on, we want to protect the businesses here, we want to allow them to be able to participate as they've done before. So to the extent that you want that done immediately, we could focus on that. And like I said, my thought would be, adjoining with that would be, and then we need to sit down and discuss going forward how this is being applied, how it is damaging us, and how it's going to lead to a cancellation of the contract if we don't get some relief.
I agree
And
100%.
that we need some either modifications, either an application or modifications of the contract itself to protect the city. So I would say I would kind of lump 1 and 2 together, like the first thing is let's get this waiver, so we're not violating the contract, we've gotten them to agree that for the home travel show that whatever, you guys have to inform me of who these vendors are or how broad I'm making that request. And then we need to immediately have a discussion about what's going on going forward. And if Iron Trail Motors is not interested in that, then we're going to look at 9E as and that would all be in the same letter, honestly.
Same letter under one motion.
Yep, I think you could do that in one motion, yeah. And then Brian could then report back to you on the response or non-response. That helps.
Thank you. Okay, Counselor Johnson?
I'll rescind my motion because I want to make sure if I'm the one proffering it, I write it properly. So I will rescind my motion simply because there's a lot that you just said. And I really think this is what the whole idea of back in December when we said, let's schedule a meeting to have this discussion so that this could be the topic of discussion and the only topic because of what we're doing here tonight at 7 minutes to 7 with a full agenda left. I'm frustrated that we couldn't do this earlier and that we have to do it now. But I appreciate your support, Councilor Paulson, and we need to do something tonight. You're absolutely right. So I will rescind my motion and process. If anybody else is ready, please do.
Okay, Counselor Johnson rescinds his motion that's on the floor now. Do you rescind your second to that motion?
I will rescind and make a new one.
Okay, the motion has been rescinded. Looking for a new motion. Would it be helpful for that motion to be crafted properly by our legal?
I would, yeah, I mean, if you would help me through that three-prong approach, that would be where I'd go with this.
So I guess what I'm hearing the council wanting the city attorney to do is to reach out through letter and phone calls to the attorney for Iron Trail Motors to demand a waiver of, there one vendor, multiple vendors for the Iron Trail, any competitor, okay? Any competitor for that particular event, which is scheduled for, if you have a date, you can give me that.
March, whatever it is.
Whatever it
whichever
is, yeah.
states.
And when do you want that waiver to be?
I had a conversation with part of the board of the Home Sport and Travel Show, and they need to get their vendors gathered, so they wanted the city council to actually respond by the 15th.
Okay. Today is the 10th.
10th.
Okay, we can request by the 15th in the letter, yeah. Email the letter, that's fine. Okay, so by the 10th, you're requesting a waiver of.
A demand, not a
for waiver.
request, a
Yeah,
demand.
you're demanding a waiver for any competitors who want to advertise or
participate
in the home
In
travel
the
show.
home sport and travel show.
Okay, and that demand is made for response by the 15th.
Correct. And then if they do not acquiesce to that demand, can we move forward at that point?
Sure, you can do anything you want, of course, but you can either I think what I would do is join with that. And in addition, we're wanting to have a discussion about how this waiver has been applied, the damages caused the city, and how to change that, either in practice or by contract, or both, okay? So that would be my second thing. Those two kind of go together. And then if the Iron Trail Motors Event Center does not grant the waiver for the home show, or is unwilling to discuss, or is unwilling to discuss the process of granting waivers and advertising going forward, then we look at 9E, we invoke that
That will
letter.
be in, this is the motion, so all
Right.
three of those approaches will be in this letter.
And so my only clarification and request from the council is, okay, so say they say no to the waiver, but we will have a discussion with you. You still want to evoke 9E
Yes.
at that point?
I would,
I need that
that would be my
direction.
intention, yes, that it will be invoked.
So that would be part of the vote. So I guess that's a question for me that I need to know the answer to.
So that, I don't know, Pam, if you need,
Well,
but as Colleen explained it, is my intention,
And I don't know that I explained it that well, but, yeah.
so if I may,
Yes.
and you wanted three separate motions?
Thank you, Mayor. So if we could do the first motion requiring the
Waiver.
waiver, then the next motion would be,
In addition, to have a meeting or discussion with Iron Trails Council to modify the manner in which they're processing the waivers and/or modifying the contract to better allow other competitors to participate in Iron
The
Trails.
third motion is, if not granted, we give the authority and the intent to invoke.
Again, by letter and phone
9E.
call for the city attorney to invoke the 9E provision of the contract, which would basically allow either party to terminate the agreement for activities that directly or indirectly damage a party's reputation or goodwill.
Okay, motion number one.
motion number one, I will move to demand, to direct our city attorney to send a demand letter to Iron Trail Motors demanding that they grant a waiver to any competing vendor for the home sport and travel show
Okay.
by January 15th.
So that's a motion on the floor. Motion number one, is there support for that?
Support for discussion.
I was just going to support it.
Support for further discussion. Counselor Johnson?
Sorry, Mayor, that you're not happy with the further
No, I
discussion.
got a really bad headache, so that's all.
I would like to request the time frame be noon on Friday, so that if we need to set a special meeting for Tuesday because of the, what we need to do next, that we have time to do that.
I would amend.
I would amend my support.
Okay, did you get that, Pam?
okay, I just had a question, so can we just discuss it at the committee of the whole then?
No, that we will be able to
Special.
schedule a special meeting to take action so that we don't have this problem in 2 weeks. Excuse me. I want to make sure that if we need a meeting on Tuesday where we have to take action, we have the time to legally post and move forward.
Thank you, Counselor Johnson. So did you get that motion, Pam? If you'd read it back, please.
By Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Johnson, to direct the city attorney to reach out to Iron Trail Motors and demand a waiver for any competitive vendors that may attend the Home Sport and Travel Show in March, and to submit the request by January 15th, 2023 at noon, and to set a special meeting on Tuesday if the request is not met.
Date is Thursday, the 13th.
The Friday, the 13th at noon. Yeah, Friday, the 13th at noon.
Okay. So is there, so,
I only,
so who made the motion? Counselor Paulson, supported by Counselor Johnson. Further discussion. Counselor Friedrich?
Colleen, do we really have any legal standing to demand a waiver when they have the right in the contract to deny waivers? And the demand, so the demand is then being followed up with the further discussion that the reason we're doing this is because of this, and if you're choosing not to do that on our behalf, then we're gonna need to do this.
Exactly.
Okay, thank you.
Exactly. And it's, I understand the council wants to demand, it really is a request, but it's, if the request is not satisfied, there's repercussions for the other party.
And the truth is, time is imminent.
Right, right.
Okay, thank you. It has been moved and supported. Is there any further discussion on motion number 1? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Motion number 2?
Yes, I'm going.
Please.
And then in conjunction with this demand being in the same letter, there would be a request, in addition to the waiver, that there be a discussion as to how the contract is going to be interpreted going forward with respect to waivers, and a discussion of potential modifications of that contract to better serve the city.
So moved.
That would be moved by Counselor Paulson. Is there support for that? Support by Counselor Freelieb. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. And then motion number 3, Colleen?
So motion number 3, again, in the same letter, which is going to provide some background, stating that if these requests are not made, are not granted, that the city will be invoking Section 9E of the contract, because the activities of Iron Trail Mortars has indirectly or directly damaged the city's reputation or goodwill.
So moved.
That would be moved by Counselor Paulson. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, any other discussion on this item? None, so let's move on to the next item on the agenda, please, Britt.
Thank you. At the committee of the whole meeting, the city council reviewed vacant building issues in downtown Virginia. There's concerns regarding vacant buildings and potential hazards or fires. The city does currently have a vacant building ordinance which requires the property owners to register, and we also have business registration for those businesses that are in buildings that look like they're vacant. Further discussion we had was regarding property that we are purchasing in the public safety area. There's one more house that is currently a vacant house that the city has finally made contact with the owner. So thus it was moved and supported to approve the purchase of the property at 1006 South 2nd Avenue for the Public Safety Center.
Looking for a motion.
So moved.
Moved to approve by Counselor Johnson. Is there support?
I'll support it.
Support by Counselor Motley. Is there any further discussion? Hearing and seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you. No further items from that meeting.
Okay, thank you. I'll move to item 10, Commission Liaison Reports. Does any city councilor have a commission liaison report to give this evening? I have one from the Rockridge School Board, which I attended. It was a long meeting, but I'm going to hold this report in abeyance in the interest of time, and I'll make that report at a later date. Anybody have any other commission liaison reports they'd like to give? Okay, we'll move to item number 11, Department Head Reports. Britt, anything to report more?
Not that I can think of, but I do want to remind everybody that on Thursday, January 19th, the city council did approve the city hall and library closing so that city staff can attend their mandatory OSHA training in one day and get it all done for the year in one day.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Colleen, anything more from legal?
No, thank you.
Thank you very much. Pam, do you have anything? Okay, thank you. Move to item 12, council reports. Does any city council have a report they'd like to give this evening? We'll go to the department head reports here. We'll have the library director that's here to make a director's report. I'm sorry, Jody. I got a migraine here. I apologize. So
That's okay. Mine
please.
is all fun stuff, and I
Good.
just have updates. How's that?
Thank you.
Okay. So, welcome to winter, right? So winter reading started this week. Stop by the library, get your winter reading booklet. We have lots of cool prizes, and you can try and find the Yeti in the library, so it will change every week. There's also a very scary Yeti, but we decided to use the cute Yeti to find the cute Yeti. This is for everybody, so it's any ages are more than welcome. Next week, on Wednesday, the 18th, we're going to start planning spring. So we're going to have a gardening series. It's going to have 3 different sessions. Next week's session is, it's time to order your seeds. Plan your vegetable garden. So Jana Gort from Fat Chicken Farm will be at the library at noon on Wednesday, and she'll be there for about an hour. More information will be available on the new library website. We're getting training tomorrow, so hopefully all of our events will be on the website tomorrow. But the new site is up, it's working, so yay. It's been a long process. Story time and all that fun stuff starts this month also, so we are gonna have winter story times for 0 to 5. We're going to try some baby story times, and we're also going to have some play days for the littles. All of that will be on our website. If you'd like more information, please give the library a call. We are doing some game zones after school on early outs. So we'll put up, I'm going to put up Wii, but also have board games. Kids are learning how to play chess, and Clue was a really big hit the last week. So who knows? The games change every week. But again, there's all sorts of stuff happening at the library, and if you have any questions, please give us a call at 218-748-7525.
748-7525. Thank you very much, Jody. Anybody have any questions, comments for Jody? Always a great report, and they are very exciting and very positive stuff going on, so thank you. Thank you. Okay. Any council reports this evening? Councilor Motley.
I just wanted to extend a special thank you to Greg French down at the Public Utilities for giving me a tour of the department, and also from Jeff that kind of toured me around too. So thank you. I look forward to being your liaison.
Hey, thank you, Councilor Motley. As far as, I just want quickly, Britt, can we, once that, Colleen, that letter that we are going to be sending out, I'm sure we're doing it as soon as possible, immediately, if not sooner, and make sure everybody gets copied on that from the council.
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Okay. Anything else that anybody has that they'd like to bring up before we adjourn the council meeting this evening? Councilor Freely.
So is time of the essence, can that be emailed to them then?
Yes.
They'll get it the next day. All
Absolutely.
right, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay. Any other questions, comments, or concerns before we adjourn for this evening? Okay, we will adjourn this meeting to our next council meeting, which is scheduled for Tuesday, January 24, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. in the council chambers. Just to let you know, on the 25th of February, I'm going to be going down to Legislative Action Day. I've scheduled some meetings with our lobbyists and some other legislators, and particularly regarding our public safety building and that issue with respect to the waiver on the debt limit. Okay, so we stand adjourned to our next council meeting, January 24th, 2023 at 5:30 p.m. Thank you, everybody. Have a great evening. We stand adjourned.